Howdy do, squirrels! I don't have my other Kindle in here, so I'm not sure where I left off. So I might be repeating myself, but I'm pretty sure I'm not skipping anything. Lord help, I hope I get through this chapter. I'm so sorry it's taken me forever. Okay, we just found out that Tom is engaged. So, like I say, I might be repeating some, but it's a very nice thing, and I'm perfectly satisfied, announced Mrs. Shaw, rousing from a slight doze. Polly looks as if she didn't believe it. Haven't I the appearance of the happiest man alive? Asked Tom, wondering if it could be pity which he saw in the steady eyes fixed on him. No, I don't think you have, she said slowly. How the deuce should a man look then? Cried Tom, rather nettled at her sober reception of the grand news. As if he had learned to care for someone a great deal more than for himself, answered Polly, with sudden color in her cheeks, a sudden softening of the voice as her eyes turned away from Tom, who was the picture of a complacent dandy from the topmost curl of his auburn head to the tips of his aristocratic boots. Tommy's quenched. I agree with you, Polly. I never liked tricks, and I hope it's only a boy and girl fancy that will soon die a natural death, said Mr. Shaw, who seemed to find it difficult to help falling into a brown study in spite of the lively chatter going on about him. Shaw Jr., being highly incensed at the disrespectful manner in which his engagement was treated, tried to assume a superb air of indifference, and finding that a decided failure, was about to stroll out of the room with a comprehensive nod when his mother called after him. Where are you going, dear? See Trix, of course. Goodbye, Polly. And Mr. Thomas departed, hoping that by the skillful change of tone from ardent impatience to condescending coolness he had impressed one hearer at least with the fact that he regarded Trix as the star of his existence and Polly as a presuming little chit. I remember that part. If he could have heard her laugh and Fanny's remarks, his wrath would have boiled over. Fortunately, he was spared the trial and went away hoping that the coquetries of his tricks would make him forget Polly's look when she answered his question. My dear, that boy is the most deluded creature you ever saw, began Fanny as soon as the front door banged. Belle and Trix both tried to catch him, and the slyest got him, for in spite of his airs he is soft-hearted as a baby. You see, Trix has broken off 2 engagements already, and the 3rd time she got jilted herself. Such a fuss as she made. I declare it really was absurd. But I do think she felt it very much, for she wouldn't go out at all, got thin and pale and blue, and it was really quite touching. I pitied her and had her hear a good deal, and Tom took her part. He always does stand up for the crushed ones, and that's good of him, I allow. Yeah, I think that's where I was. Here popped up a bookmark. Let's see. Well, she did the forsaken very prettily, let Tom amuse her, and led him on till the poor fellow lost his wits. And finding her crying one day about her hat, which wasn't becoming, he thought she was mourning for Mr. Banks, and so to comfort her, the goose proposed. That was all she wanted. She snapped him up at once, and there he is in a nice scrape, for since her engagement she's as gay as ever. Flirts awfully with anyone who comes along, and keeps Tom in a fume all the time. I really don't think he cares for her half as much as he makes believe, but he'll stand by her through thick and thin rather than do as Banks did. Poor Tom, was all Polly said when Fan had poured the story into her ear as they sat whispering in the sofa corner. My only consolation is that Trix will break off the affair before spring, she always does, so that she may be free for the summer campaign. It won't hurt Tom, but I hate to have him make a fool of himself out of pity, for he is more of a man than he seems, and I don't want anyone to plague him." "No one but yourself," said Polly, smiling. "Well, that's all fair. He's a torment sometimes, but I'm rather fond of him in spite of it. I get so tired of the other fellows. They are such absurd things, and when Tom is in a good mood, he's very nice and quite refreshing." "I'm glad to hear it," said Polly, making a mental note of the fact. "Yes, and when Grandma was ill, he was perfectly devoted. I didn't know the boy had so much gentleness in him. He took her death sadly to heart, for though he didn't say much, he was very grave and steady for a long time. I tried to comfort him, and we had 2 or 3 real sweet little talks together and seemed to get acquainted for the first time. It was very nice, but it didn't last. Good times never do with us. We soon got back into the old way, and now we hector one another just as before." Fanny sighed, then yawned, and fell into her usual listless attitude, as if the brief excitement of Polly's coming had begun to subside. "Walk home with me and see my funny little room. It's bright now, and the air will do you good. Come, both of you, and have a frolic as we used to," said Polly, for the red sunset now burning in the west seemed to invite them out. They agreed, and soon the 3 were walking briskly away to Polly's new home, in a quiet street where a few old trees rustled in the summer, and the morning sun shone pleasantly in winter time. "The way into my parlor is up a winding stair," sang Polly, running up 2 flights of broad, old-fashioned steps and opening the door of a back room, out of which streamed the welcome glow of firelight. "These are my pets, Maud," she added, pausing on the threshold and beckoning the girls to look in quietly. On the rug, luxuriously basking in the warmth, lay a gray kitten, and close by, meditatively roosting on one leg, stood a plump canary, who cocked his bright eye at the newcomers, gave a loud chirp as if to wake his comrade, and then flew straight to Polly's shoulder, where he broke into a joyful song to welcome his mistress home. "Allow me to introduce my family," said Polly. "This noisy little chap, the boy's named Nicodemus, and this dozy cat is called Ashputtel. I guess. Ash, Puttel. Because the joy of her life is to get among the cinders. Now take off your things and let me do the honors. For you are to stop to tea, and the carriage is to come for you at 8. I arranged it with your mother while you were upstairs." "I want to see everything," said Maud, when the hats were off and the hands warmed. "So you shall, for I think my housekeeping arrangements will amuse you." Then Polly showed her kingdom, and the 3 had a merry time over it. The big piano took up so much room there was no place for a bed, but Polly proudly displayed the resources of her chintz-covered couch, for the back let down, the seat lifted up, and inside were all the pillows and blankets. So convenient, you see, and yet out of the way in the daytime, for 2 or 3 of my pupils come to me," explained Polly. Then there was a bright drugget over the faded carpet. The little rocking chair and sewing table stood at one window. The ivy ran all over the other and hid the banqueting performances which went on in that corner. Bookshelves hung over the sofa, a picture or 2 on the walls, and a great vase of autumn leaves and grasses beautified the low chimney-piece. It was a very humble little room, but Polly had done her best to make it pleasant, and it already had a home-like look, with the cheery fire and the household pets chirping and purring confidingly on the rug. "How nice it is!" exclaimed Maud as she emerged from the big closet where Polly kept her stores. "Such a cunning tea kettle and saucepan and tete-a-tete set, and lots of good things to eat. Do you have toast for tea, Polly? And let me make it with the new toasting fork. It's such fun to play cook." Fanny was not so enthusiastic as her sister, for her eyes now saw many traces of what seemed like poverty to her. But Polly was so gay, so satisfied with her small establishment, so full of happy hopes and plans, that her friend had not the heart to find a fault or suggest an improvement, and sat where she was told, laughing and talking while the others got tea. "This will be country supper, girls," said Polly, bustling about. "Here is real cream, brown bread, homemade cake, and honey from my own beehives. Mother fitted me out with such a supply. I'm glad to have a party, for I can't eat it all quick enough. Butter the toast, Maudie, and put the little cover over it. Tell me when the kettle boils, and don't step on Nicodemus, whatever you do." "What a capital housekeeper you will make some day," said Fanny, as she watched Polly spread her table with a neatness and dispatch which was pleasant to behold. "Yes, it's good practice," laughed Polly, filling her tiny teapot and taking her place behind the tray with a matronly air which was the best joke of the whole. "This is the most delicious party I ever went to," observed Maud, with her mouth full of honey, when the feast was well under way. "I do wish I could have a nice room like this, and a cat and a bird that wouldn't eat each other up, and a dear little tea kettle, and make just as much toast as I like." Such a peal of laughter greeted Maud's pensive aspiration that Miss Mills smiled over her solitary cup of tea, and little Nick burst into a perfect ecstasy of song as he sat on the sugar bowl helping himself. "I don't care for the toast and the kettle, but I do envy you your good spirits, Polly," said Fanny as the merriment subsided. "I'm so tired of everybody and everything. It seems sometimes as if I should die of ennui, Ennennui, and I guess that's like boredom. Don't you ever feel so? Things worry me sometimes, but I just catch up a broom and sweep, or wash hard, or walk, or go at something with all my might. And usually I find by the time I get through, the worry is gone, or I've got courage enough to bear it without grumbling," answered Polly, cutting the brown loaf energetically. "I can't do those things, you know. There's no need of it. And I don't think they'd cure my worrying," said Fanny languidly, feeding Ashputtel, who sat decorously beside her at the table, winking at the cream pot. "A little poverty would do you good, Fan, just enough necessity to keep you busy till you find how good work is. And when you once learn that, you won't complain of ennui any more," returned Polly, who had taken kindly the hard lesson which 20 years of cheerful poverty had taught her. Let's see if we can look up that word. It's a-comin', a feeling of listlessness and dissatisfaction arising from a lack of occupation. So it's like boredom. In conventional usage, boredom. Yep, that's it.
Boredom.
Oh, tell me how to say it in new. Where's my phone? Huh? It's supposed to be quiet. Oh, little sis is on. I got to hurry. Returned Polly, who had taken kindly the hard lesson which 20 years of cheerful poverty had taught her. "Mercy, no, I should hate that, but I wish someone would invent a new amusement for rich people. I'm dead sick of parties and flirtations, trying to outdress my neighbors and going the same round year after year like a squirrel in a cage." Fanny's tone was bitter as well as discontented, her face sad as well as listless, and Polly had an instinctive feeling that some trouble, more real than any she had ever known before, was lying heavy at her friend's heart. That was not the time to speak of it, but Polly resolved to stand ready to offer sympathy, if nothing more, whenever the confidential minute came, and her manner was so kind, so comfortable, that Fanny felt its silent magic grew more cheerful in the quiet atmosphere of that little room. And when they said good night, after an old-timey gossip by the fire, she kissed her hostess warmly, saying with a grateful look, "Polly dear, I shall come often. You do me such good." Yay! We finished it finally. And the next chapter is called, it's chapter 9, it's called Lessons. Be sweet, don't be ugly. Bye.